everyone, welcome back and welcome to the first video in a new playlist that I'm bringing to this channel. So in my last video I mentioned that for quite a while I had just fancied doing some videos that discussed deeper topics, if you will. So on Instagram I'd started a little thing called Monday Realness, and I guess this is a new extension to that. So I would just quite like a little space where not necessarily every week but maybe every fortnight or even maybe once a month to do a video that talks about different things, maybe to do with mental health, anxiety, and along those lines. So welcome to the first episode. This video is basically about a lifestyle change that I made just over a month ago now. So I did drop a little Easter egg, if you will, about it in my chatty Q&A video. I mentioned that I'd made a lifestyle change, and I was talking about in the Q&A I was talking about the idea of going vegetarian, and I just mentioned that I wasn't necessarily making that choice at the minute, but I had made another choice, which was to give up alcohol. So I know the title of this video, I'm going to title it Giving It Up for 30 Days and Counting, because I do want to say from the get-go, this is not a video about giving it up for a month and then going back to the same drinking habits. This is me talking about actually completely changing my way of drinking and actually making a lifestyle change. So the irony is not lost on me that this channel started as a champagne review account. I am well aware of that. I think what I will say is that when I was doing those videos, I was attempting to go down a route of being very appreciative of wine and alcohol, and that's not really where I see necessarily any negatives. I think what I'm trying to target is more mindless drinking. So yeah, I am aware there is irony there, and I probably will get a new intro since mine features a champagne glass. And sorry, I'm just gonna let Teddy out the door. On that note, I do want to say that this video is for absolutely anybody that wants to watch. So whether you enjoy drinking, whether you are thinking of giving up drinking, whether you are, to use the popular term, sober curious, whether you are just curious to know why I've done this or the changes, these are things I will be discussing, not necessarily all in this video, but definitely I do want to come back to this topic at a later stage. And yeah, so basically the timeline for this video, I'm going to briefly discuss the kind of emotional journey that I went on when I decided, you know what, no, I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to discuss all the things that I've noticed. So I will say I'm not going to spend really too much time in this video discussing my reasons for why. I think I'm going to do that in a follow-up video a wee bit further down the line. So let's just get started. So what basically started me on this journey was that I had this moment where I really feel I had an epiphany, and it wasn't an easy decision to make, which is why I want to briefly discuss the kind of emotions around it, because I am not now someone that absolutely hates champagne. I still love champagne. I think it is such an elegant drink. However, I don't necessarily feel that alcohol was actually a positive in my life overall. And I will say, I'm not saying never ever ever will I touch a drink again, you know, I'm cutting it out and that's it for good. I am just, at the very start I said to my sister, do you know what, I think I need to do this. I need to give it a period of time, say for example 3 months, and see the difference. And again, I'm not saying 3 months then we'll go back. It's about making an overall lifestyle change. So the first thing that happened, I would say I was quite, I'm going to say I was quite emotional, because there is an awful lot of stigma and shame in our society around drinking and then deciding not to drink. And this is something that, again, I want to come back to, because it's not something that I really was that aware of until I decided to give up drinking. There's this automatic thing in our heads, I think, in society, where if someone says they're not drinking or they don't drink anymore, you just immediately think, oh, they must have had a problem. And when I decided to sort of say to myself, do you know what, I actually don't think I want to drink, then there's this sort of mindset of, oh my goodness, well then is this a problem? And I think that was the first thing, that was this sort of emotional journey of what is actually going on here, rather than, you know, say for example you're just giving up smoking, everyone would just be like, that's great, you know, well done, like we're fully supportive. Whereas drinking, there seems to be this other side to it where it's like, oh, like what's going on there? You know, it's not really enough just to say, I don't think it was necessarily helpful. Sorry, I feel like I was rambling on and on there, so sorry if that's a bit choppy, because I've just decided to kind of cut that off and start again. So yes, I think the idea of giving it up, there's this society views that as kind of different. It's not the norm. The norm is to drink. So, in my society anyway, so it just felt a little bit, I was just unsure of what I actually felt with my own decision. So that was the first little bit. I was definitely a little bit emotional. Then I felt, and for the first time in my life, I feel like I can use the word empowered and truly understand what it means to feel empowered. I really felt this pride and strength in myself in taking this decision, because I just thought, I think you're making a good decision, and I just felt proud of myself, and I really felt like I was taking charge of my life, of my lifestyle, and saying, okay, I think this is what we're going to do. So that lasted for like a few days. It didn't unfortunately stay forever, but I definitely felt empowered by this decision, and I felt like I was having a growing up moment. And I am in no way saying that those two are equivalent, you know, giving up alcohol to growing up, but I just felt like this was a mature adult decision, that I was looking at my life and trying to improve it for the better. And then I will say, I think it's like anything, when you make a change, you do hit a bit of a wall. So whether it's a new exercise regime, whether it's, I don't know, taking up a new hobby that you're trying to work hard at but you find difficult, there's usually a point where you hit a bit of a wall and you think, why am I deciding to do this? I wasn't tempted to give up, as in I wasn't tempted to have a drink, but I did feel this, as if I was lacking a little bit to look forward to. I kind of felt like I didn't have much to aim towards. You know, alcohol for me is definitely something that I would enjoy at the weekends, and I felt a little bit flat about what have I got to look forward to. And I would say probably in those moments I did question, do I need to just go whole hog and have nothing? But I was actually fairly resolute in my decision, and I didn't actually waver. I just wondered, I think in those moments, you know, how will I feel going forward, you know, particularly with the upcoming festivities. But I'm kind of now coming to the end of this little section on emotions, because after that point, that lasted a few days, and then I moved into really seeing the difference that having no alcohol whatsoever made to my life. So this is going to be the latter part of this video, all the positive things that I've noticed. Okay, so the first one, and I will say this is the majority shareholder in reasons of why I decided to do this in the first place, and it was to see if having no alcohol at all would in any way affect my anxiety. So I am an anxious person, I have anxiety, I'm an overthinker, I'm an overanalyzer, and I just had noticed, okay, even when you are not drinking huge amounts on like a big night out, even if it is fairly moderate drinking, I just noticed this increase in anxiety for the days afterwards. And I just thought, do you know what, I think for me, I'm just gonna go cold turkey, nothing. So I am pleased to report back that, and I'm honestly shocked at this myself, and I am not making this up, I'm not exaggerating, I would say I've had a decrease in my anxiety, I would say upwards of 80% in the past, it's almost been 5 weeks I think now. And I really, really have noticed the difference, and this is something that I really want to come back and talk about at another point, because I really don't think there's enough awareness about the link between alcohol and anxiety, and I just don't think it's talked about enough, because I was not aware that there is such a direct correlation, and I don't know whether I was just immune to it. I just had never considered that the alcohol was probably a major contributing factor to making me have these anxious moments. And just to comment on this further, I would say in this past period of time, I had one moment of noticeable anxiety, and it was in the middle of the night. I was staying in a hotel in London and the fire alarm went off. And I definitely felt this current of anxiety running through me. Even once it was off and I started sort of going through scenarios in my head, and I would say I was anxious, but I also feel like that is totally understandable and very circumstantial. And so to me, that almost doesn't count because it was not induced by alcohol and it was not out of nothing, if that makes sense. Something kind of frightening happened. So, and honestly, that is the only moment that I would say I've had noticeable anxiety. Whereas beforehand, I think I would be experiencing just a general increase in anxiety, not necessarily having huge moments of anxiety, but just an increase in it. Okay, so the second thing is, oh my goodness, I am sleeping so well. I didn't think it was possible to sleep as well as this. I am, to use the phrase, out like a light. It's just, I am having the most solid, undisturbed sleeps, and yeah, I am, this is one amazing benefit, that I just feel so well rested. I in turn have more energy. I am really, really delighted with how well I've been sleeping. And I do want at this moment to kind of briefly touch on, and I want to be very sensitive around this subject, I want to talk about the level of alcohol that I was personally having, because I think there is this conception that you could only have the benefits from not drinking alcohol if you're drinking a lot very regularly. I wouldn't say I was drinking a lot very regularly. I would say I was having wine most weekends, and I was drinking every weekend, but I wasn't drinking during the week. And some weekends, if it was like a night out or an event, yes, it was definitely like a big night out, and that was when it went definitely up more. But typically I wasn't actually drinking vast quantities. But what my point in saying this is that, so even if you're not necessarily drinking every day or drinking loads, there still are so many benefits to get from just giving it up altogether. The reason I want to be mindful about that subject is that I definitely don't want anyone to compare what they're drinking to what I'm drinking or was drinking, or using it as a benchmark. I definitely had big nights out, so I'm not trying to say that I wasn't drinking that much. Yeah. So the next benefit is productivity. I like to think of myself as someone that is fairly organised. So, you know, I run my YouTube channel, I run my Instagram, I have my business. I'm a busy person, I have a busy social life. So I like to think of myself as fairly organised and put together. But I had noticed that, particularly if I was hungover, obviously you're not going to be at your most productive. And there were some days where I was supposed to film a reel or I was supposed to do something, and I never got round to it because I just didn't have the energy, or I just didn't want to. So I will say that I've definitely noticed an increase in my productivity, and even small tasks like getting back to people at a mannerly time, I think has improved. I think just getting a bit organised. I really like cooking, and I've just felt I've had a bit more time to actually really think of different and unusual recipes rather than just kind of going through a cycle of similar ones. So the productivity has been a definite big plus, and I will say productivity was probably my second reason for deciding to make this change. I wanted to fully commit essentially to creating content, as well as other factors in my life. But I mentioned in my Q&A that next year I want to be laser focused on this channel and my Instagram. So again, this decision was part of that as well. Okay, so on to the next thing that I noticed, and again, this one is really quite a major difference I noticed, was that in general I have had a much more positive attitude in just daily life. Jack has noticed it because I have asked him, I said, is there anything you would notice? And he was like, yeah, you seem a bit more positive. And I will admit, I have a tendency to be quite negative. I don't want to say I'm doer, but I am probably more glass half empty. And I know I probably don't necessarily come across that way, but I can get stuck in negative thought cycles, and sometimes I haven't found it the easiest to break away from that. But what I will say about not having any alcohol is that you do get a bit more clarity, and I just have felt that I haven't necessarily had the same amount of sort of negative thoughts, and I also haven't had them run away with themselves, if that makes sense. And I also want to talk about this a little bit because I think we kind of throw around the phrase or statement that alcohol is a depressant, and we don't actually ever stop to think, well, what does that actually mean? Alcohol is a depressant, and I've been doing a lot of reading, and I've been watching YouTubes, I have been listening to podcasts, reading articles to really educate myself on this topic. And what I have understood is that alcohol does relax the brain. So scientists say it actually relaxes your brain. It can give short-term relief for those with anxiety because it just calms everything down, and it gives you a dopamine hit, which gives you that sort of feeling good. And that's why a lot of us like drinking, because it gives us that feeling. However, it is a false friend in my mind. Particularly, I think if you do suffer with anxiety and maybe you're watching this video, you're a little bit curious, what I have really understood now is that yes, you get that initial feel-good feeling, and that usually stays as you have a few more drinks. But, and there is a big but, because the following day, even if you haven't drunk huge amounts, or if you have, the alcohol is now going to leave your system. And I'm going to just quickly check the notes to make sure I get these hormones or scientific terms right. So I'm actually just going to read this. So alcohol changes levels of serotonin and other neurotransmitters in the brain, which can worsen anxiety. In fact, you may feel more anxious after the alcohol wears off. Alcohol-induced anxiety can last for several hours or even days. And I'm just going to list another wee bit, and I will link the website this is from. It is from goodtherapy.org. And this says drinking alcohol can temporarily boost serotonin levels, therefore making you feel happier, but in the long term, excess alcohol can actually lower serotonin levels and therefore causing or exacerbating depression. And I think this is something that maybe we think, like, that's obvious, or maybe, I don't know, maybe I was just blind to that. But what I would say is that specifically says excess alcohol. In my experience, it doesn't necessarily have to be excess alcohol. I genuinely believe, for me in my personal circumstances, even having a few glasses of wine on a Friday night and a Saturday night was just increasing anxiety levels, maybe ever so slightly, for the following week for me. So, and there was a little quote that I also wanted to say here that again was from another website that is, yeah, I think it's important to note that some people who drink alcohol regularly may never experience symptoms of increased anxiety or depression, whereas other people, they may only need to have one glass and they feel those feelings. So obviously this is something that is going to affect us all differently, so there's no blanket rule for all, I would say. So the next positive that I noticed is probably quite a personal one, but I even felt that Jack and I have just become that wee bit closer. I just feel as if we are communicating really well. I think it's probably coming about from my new positive attitude, but I just feel this warmth. So I don't really know what that is, where that is coming from, but it's probably a combination of all the previous factors. And I do think making these lifestyle changes can strengthen relationships. So I've got a couple more that I'm going to say. These are slightly more along the sort of physical appearance kind of reasons. So benefits, sorry. One, I would say I definitely feel less bloated. So I do bloat, as I think we all do, but I would really be quite bloated a lot of the time, and I've definitely noticed the difference there. So I'm not getting as bloated, and it's maybe not getting to be as painful, and then sometimes it can be very sore if you're bloated. I definitely don't feel I'm having the intense bloats. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I definitely feel less bloated, and I also just feel, you just feel fresher, and I think like in terms of like my skin, I feel like my skin has improved a little bit, and I think probably just not being dehydrated as well, because probably it was probably dehydrated at some points as well. So that was kind of the final two benefits. I think that is me kind of reaching the end of this video now. So I am a little bit nervous to think about how this video has gone and you know what I've managed to talk about, because it's a difficult subject to talk about. And I will say that if anyone does want to leave a comment, this is a safe space, so please be mindful. If you are deciding to leave a comment, about everyone may have different thoughts on this, may be different stages of our journey. So let's just keep this a really safe space, and we can have a conversation about this with absolutely no judgment, because that is the last thing that I would want to, you know, come out of this video is judgment at all, whether you drink or whether you don't, or whether you're looking to give up or whatever. So I think I just wanted to kind of round this off with a final note on what my aim now is, because I have reached, you know, 30 something days or whatever, but I want to stress that this was never about giving it up for a month and then going back. I am now going to be continuing on essentially not drinking. As for the festivities such as Christmas Day, I have not decided whether I will have a drink or not, and I don't think that's something I want to decide right now. I think my attitude is going to be very mindful about it, and if there becomes a moment where I decide that having a glass of champagne or something will enhance this moment, and I feel very safe in my decision and I'm conscious of my decision, then that is what I will do. But for the time being, my aim is to really reduce my alcohol consumption to pretty much none, if not none at all. So that is my aim. It's my aim for 2022 to... I do wish there was a term for being, you know, like almost sober. I do probably want to be in the category of now being sober, but like I said, I don't want to say I will never ever have a drink again, because I think there is a difference between mindful drinking, and that is a term that I'm going to research more, because I know there has been a mindful drinking movement, and that's probably a longer term goal for me. But like I said, I do want to pick up with this topic again at another point. I was thinking in January, when there will be an increase in people doing things like dry January. So what I will say is that if you are considering giving up alcohol and you're slightly worried about what people might think, or maybe they'll think you have an issue or something like that, and you're not ready to face that, you could definitely use dry January as an entry point. And I think that's a good way to start. Is you could say I'm doing dry January, and then when it comes to February, you just say I'm actually continuing on for another month, and then another month. I think one major thing I will say is that I've done alcohol-free months before. You know, I think I did it once for charity, or Jack and I did have a very failed attempt at dry January, which I'll not go into. But I think this time my mindset was completely different. Beforehand, I was thinking, what am I giving up? I'm giving alcohol up, and then I will count down the days until I will be drinking again. This is absolutely not that. I know I've titled this video in this way, and I am counting up the days, but I'm in no way counting down to having a drink. I'm just collecting my days, because it's quite satisfying to do that. And yeah, this is a lifestyle change that I'm wishing to implement. So I'm going to wrap it up now. I hope this video was okay. I feel like I've talked and talked and talked, but thank you very much if you have reached it to the end. As I said, this is going to be a new playlist on a Monday. I'm thinking of doing a video like this. The next one might not be until, in fact, I don't think it will be until 2022, and then it may continue on every fortnight or every month, or just whenever I feel like there's a topic that I want to bring up again. But I am going to follow this up with, at some point, maybe, if I feel like this video is okay, the reasons why in more detail I decided to give up alcohol, and maybe some tips, the things that I did to make the change. So thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. Let me know if you do have any comments, and I will see you the next time for Monday Mindfulness. If you are looking for my other videos, which are on fashion and lifestyle, they are uploaded on a Thursday at 7 o'clock, and I will see you then. Bye!